A hellish nightmare I couldn't wake up from. Yo, what's up? It's someone that's no one, and welcome back to today's report. Today's report was sent in by Joe, where he took Dextromethorphan, Delsym, at a dose of over 3,000 milligrams. And here's the full report details. Okay, so welcome back to a DXN trip report. This is one of the strongest doses we ever covered with it yet. And the reason being is because it's actually a suicide attempt. Joe wasn't in the best place at the time, and with DXM being his drug of choice, he decided to try and overdose on it. Because of this context, I wouldn't say this is as much of a DXM trip as it is an overdose report. Plenty of facts are described, but a lot of it ends up being told from the outside perspective. I would just say he ends up in a dangerous state where he may have been close to dying. It's pretty concerning, all of it, but it does show where some may end up with this substance and drug use in general. But with that, I'm sure you'll enjoy this report, so without further ado, let's dive right into this. Sadly, this story is not a fun one. The intent behind it isn't either. I felt the need to kill myself one evening, so I decided to walk to the closest Walgreens to steal DXM to overdose on. DXM was my drug of choice for 2.5 years, and it wasn't the first time I tried overdosing on it. I make it to Walgreens and walk my way to the cough syrup aisle with my empty backpack already unzipped. I get to the aisle and just start taking as many as I could while no one was looking. I took 7 5-ounce bottles of Delsym, zipped up my backpack, then walked out of there like it was nothing. Like I said before, I had done this many times, so I was used to it. The next stage of the plan involved me going to the subway right by the Walgreens, so I could go to the bathroom and start sipping. I get 3 bottles down before I text my friends to come get me. I wanted to see them one last time, just not like this. I go wait outside in front of the subway and start drinking another. My friends pull up right as I finished, and I hopped in the car. They weren't happy with me because they thought I was relapsing, but decided not to do anything about it for the night. As we were in the car, I let my stomach settle, and later when I started feeling better, I cracked open the next bottle. My friends had no idea how many I drank at the time, so I got through 2 more bottles before the plan started to fall apart. I told my friends to drop me off anywhere but my house, and they wouldn't because they knew I was about to get fucked up. I pleaded with them and even tried jumping out of the car before my friend pulled me back in and put the child lock on. My friends decided to park up. That's when I tried running. They caught up to me easily because it had been about an hour since I first drank the 3 bottles, and they eventually got me back to the car to ask me what the fuck was happening. I ended up telling them my plan, and they decided to bring me home. We get to my house, and I'm dreading what will happen, because I know my parents would be upset. From what my friend said, I was barely able to walk to the door. I kept taking a few steps, then stopping and saying, "Don't worry, I got it." We get to the front door, and my friends tell my parents everything they knew. My parents thanked them, gave them her number, and then they left. My parents were mad and worried, asking me why I decided to do this and why I did it for such a stupid reason. I remember looking down at my kitchen table and seeing the light and the reflection of it. It started to spin as the echoing voices of my parents slowly started to fade away. It was at this point that my parents sit me down on our family room couch because I kept almost falling out of the kitchen chair. All I remember was sitting down, exchanging a few words with my parents, and then nothing. I was blacked out for 4 days, except for one blur in the hospital. I'll get to the part I remember last, but this next part is all from what my parents told me. After trying to talk to me for a while to no avail, my parents decided to sleep in the family room with me to make sure I didn't go anywhere, even though I wouldn't have been able to anyway. I was tossing and turning all night until morning came. When my parents woke up, they tried getting me to go to the mental hospital, but I wouldn't say anything. They would say something, and I would look at them, but I couldn't respond or move. This is when they called the ambulance. The paramedics get me to the ER, but of course, we had to wait for me to get a room. I forgot how long my dad said we waited, but he said it was a while before they came with a stretcher to put me in a room. My dad told me I started mouthing off the guy wheeling me down to my room, and he told me to stop, but I wouldn't. They get me in a room, and after a few minutes, that's when I seized. All my vitals shot up, and there were more than 15 people working around me to keep me alive. They moved me to the ICU because I was in really bad condition, but eventually I was better once the DXM started leaving my system. My parents stayed with me the next few days at the ICU and told me I was quite the character. I was repeating fast food commercials in funny voices, responding to nurses by saying, "Yee," and would fuck with the nurses by taking off my soft arm restraints. One morning, my mom showed up to the ICU and just saw me on the hospital bed in hard restraints looking like a starfish. Apparently, the night before, I had chewed through one of my soft restraints and taken the other one off, then just sit on the bed. When the nurses would tell me to get down, I wouldn't. And from what they told my mom, I started swinging. But luckily I was so fucked up, I couldn't hurt anybody. When I woke up, it took me a few minutes to realize where I was and what had happened. But things started coming back to me. After one more day in the ICU, I went to the mental hospital, Linden Oaks, for trying to kill myself. Wasn't the first time I've been there, but it will be the last. I'm a lot better now, and this shit will never happen again. Now for the snippet I remember. I thought I was in a dream. I could barely see or comprehend what was around me. All I knew was that I was in the ER. I could hear myself crying very loudly, but I couldn't remember any sensations in my body. Sounds were incredibly distorted. The frequency was all fucked up, and everything had some kind of reverb. There were times where I saw my parents standing over me, telling me to let it out and just breathe. There were times when I would stop and make a moaning noise when I calmed down. All I remember is thinking, what is going on? And why am I stuck in this hellish nightmare that I can't wake up from?